Okay, folks, we're continuing our look at Edge Magazine, issue 14, November 1994. Virtua Fighter. This article discusses how the Saturn version would need less polygons because of texture mapping, which is what you see in Virtua Fighter 2. The Saturn was pretty good at texture mapping. You see that a lot in their 3D games. Not that good at computing polygons, which is ironic because Sega was in the early 90s the #1 polygon company, but their Saturn didn't mimic that. 3DO games? Yeah, LucasArts. At the top of their game in the mid-90s, they had the shooting game, I forgot the name, Dark Forces I think it was called. Full Throttle was about to be released, and also The Dig. So, yeah, Dark Forces is a pretty good version of a shooting game on the Doom engine. Worth checking out. Here we have, what's his name? That's not Tim Schafer, right? No, Tim Schafer looks different. Probably somebody important. But here we have Tim Schafer. And here's work on Full Throttle. I don't think it has aged very well, but it's a pretty cool concept. An adventure game with motorcycle gang. I've never finished it, so I can't tell you that much about it. And, oh, where's The Dig? Well, apparently Steven Spielberg was helping with a game called The Dig, which very atmospheric, more like Myst than other LucasArts games. Didn't have the humor of the other games. Not one of their best works all around. We'll see, but Edge liked it though. Here's a picture of the game. So, very strange world. Okay, so the French. Yes, here you have the Metro. And so Heart of Darkness, a cinematic platformer, and I don't like those games. Not many people like them either. Games like Prince of Persia and Flashback, I don't enjoy them because the gameplay is what I call canned. Every animation is done after another, and there's no freedom of movement like you have in Mario. They're basically just puzzles. And usually they're very hard. Now, Out of This World I liked a lot, and the person who made Out of This World also worked on this one. You see a lot of resemblances, but this world did not interest me. It was just a lot of cliches, a lot of fantasy cliches where you just try to get through. And yes, the animation looked fantastic. There's some great FMV sections. The music's good. Production-wise, it's a fantastic game. But it just wasn't fun to play. It was a lot of trial and error, and it was rather short. So Heart of Darkness is nowadays considered an obscure game, which I find odd because at the time it was all the hype. Cryo with their Lost Eden game, another beautifully looking game with not that much good gameplay, although of course it was an adventure game, so not much to expect from that. Adeline, the makers of the original Alone in the Dark, went to make Little Big Adventure, which had horrible controls, like tank-like controls in it's kind of like a Zelda-like adventure game. Not that many images, unfortunately. Little Big Adventure had these funny characters. I didn't like them. Good music, though. Bit of a cult classic. And the funny thing is that I didn't get far in the game because I just didn't enjoy playing it. But there's an iOS version of the game, and that plays better because you simply just tap on things and then your fellow does everything automatic, which I think is very telling of the game because it's not an action game. It's just an adventure game, really. Infogum with their Alone in the Dark Part 3, which would be the best in the series. And slightly improving the graphics again. Probably improving the combat. I've never played Part 3, but I heard good things about it. Okay, we haven't gotten the reviews yet, and there's no review introduction. But there's Doom 2. Now, Doom 1 only got a 7 from Edge, and this time they give a 9. And is Doom 2 much better than Part 1? No, but you have the double shotgun, which is a good thing, and some extra enemies, and most of... Doom 2 has some really funny levels. Some people love them because they're very sophisticated. I don't like them because, to me, they're more like puzzles. I think they're rather ham-fisted. And there's a lot... You have to do a lot of looking around and trying to figure out the physics of the game. I preferred the more organic feel of the original levels in Doom 1. But, you know, you have extra enemies. This is a really cool encounter. They just, you know, they fight each other. So Doom 2 understands the mechanics of the game, and it uses that. Of course, there was later Final Doom, which took it even to a higher level. Yeah, and you go back to Earth. If you pay attention, you'll notice you're on Earth. So there's Inferno, another hyped game. A fancy-looking space sim with the emphasis on shooting and flying. There's no trading going on. It's a big world. That's cool. Pretty interesting-looking full-motion video sections. What's really annoying about the game is that the ship's hull takes half the screen. So you're really only left with a very thin part of the screen to look at. That annoys me. Edge gives it an 8. That's way too high. I think it should have been in a 5 or a 6 because it's a rather dull game, to be honest. But it looks fantastic. Give you that. Alien vs. Predator, another game that looks fantastic. We played dully, and for some reason this game they gave a 4, which I think should have been also a 5 or a 6. Maybe a 7 even. Because I think that was more fun to play than Inferno. Simply because I guess it's just nicer to control a human than a ship. Just better controls. Still very dull level design. And the 3 different characters were a neat idea at the time, but not well implemented. Very choppy animation too. You don't see that in the stills, but it's you have the face hugger. That's pretty cool, right? So yeah, 1994 is full of games with high production values but low gameplay. People were concerned about the future, not the past. Hey, Bionic Commandos. I love how this Edge review, which was not written by an Edge contributor, it was written by a fan. And they actively ask for more articles written like this by people, by readers. And this review says how it's too technical to be an arcade game. And they praise the Commodore 64 version, but they don't mention the Nintendo version. Now, the Nintendo version is a completely different game, of course, but you still have the grappling hook. And of all the versions of Bionic Commandos, I would say the Nintendo version is the best. There's also a Game Boy version, which is also more or less the same as the Nintendo version. So, yeah, I think it's odd that they completely neglect the Nintendo game. Typically Britain. For some reason, the Nintendo wasn't that big there. So they preferred talking about the Commodore 64 version, which is not as good as the Nintendo version, seriously. Okay. So, I got this second hand, and the previous owner cut out they wanted to go to the Future Entertainment Show, apparently. I hope they were able to do so. And they also cut out a back issue form, which means I can't tell you the top 10 for the Mega CD. I tried to look for Night Trap, but couldn't find it. Now, interestingly, we have Super Street Fighter 2 taking the top 2 places. Okay, kind of makes sense. But Gargoyle's Quest Part 2 for the NES is 3rd place? A NES game? And Mega Man 5 at 6th place? I don't believe that, to be honest. I mean, this game was released in 1992. This one too, I believe. So, I don't know what's with these charts. I find it hard to believe. Okay, so we have Japan looking forward to Zero 4 Champ RR, which is like a racing role-playing game of sorts. And, yeah, Street Fighter 2, of course. Edge readers looking forward to the Need for Speed for 3DO, rightfully so. Daytona again. Labyrinth, again that game, which only has pictures. I guess it's because it's the best looking game for the PlayStation 1. Mototown GP, and Clockwork Knight. So, advertisements. Peter Molyneux, at the time one of the best game developers in the world. Without doubt, Magic Carpet had just been released. Peter Molyneux talks about, well, why he's glad that the 16-bit machines are losing their dominance, because he doesn't like them. I think it has to do with the lack of RAM, because he also criticizes the PlayStation 1 for only having 2 megabytes of RAM. Peter Molyneux's games were always first released for the Amiga, which was an excellent computer back in the day. And I think that's why he was disappointed in the 16-bit consoles, because they didn't have the same power. He just wanted people to use the Amiga. Although a lot of Amiga games were translated quite well to the Mega Drive. There's not much talk about, his weird ideas, but at the time he just made solid games, like Theme Park. Later on he would become the guy with the wacky ideas with Black and White and Fable and whatever came after that. And we're almost done. The Q&A. Anything interesting? I don't recall people asking how many polygons per second can it do. Yeah. No interesting questions. Q&A, I hope, will soon leave this magazine because it's always the same things. Okay, so next month we'll be looking at Sega and their AM2. This is their JAMA board for the Model 2 probably. And here's a preview of Virtua Fighter 2, which didn't look that good. But yeah, definitely an improvement over Virtua Fighter 1. And Edge is starting to get abstract. Oh, it's like a flag of sorts. Yeah, I always like the inside of the Edge magazines. They always do something artsy. No traditional black cover. So this is the second one so far. So it's not that traditional anymore. And on the inside, well, we just had this, a 64-bit 3D update, Saturn, Virtua Fighter, PlayStation Ridge Racer, and reviews for Inferno, Doom 2, and Alien vs. Predator. Oh, no lie. So that was Edge Magazine number 14. See you at number 15.